Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua Kennedy, and I will be presenting for the D&D Fighter Character Generator Project Group. Other members of my group are Spencer Nogler, Colin Thomas, and Joshua Wright. So first I'm going to talk about some features that we added to the program this time around, and I'll demonstrate those with the project demonstration here shortly. So now the PDF sheet that was previously available in iteration 2 and 1 now has speed printed on it, and speed is derived from the race. So that was a relatively easy thing to add, something that a few users had asked us to add, or testers had asked us to add. And also this was the most mentioned thing from all of our our acceptance testing results was that the user can now save their file under a different name than their character. We heard you. We've heard the people. We've had our own frustrations with this, so we decided to go ahead and just add that in there for you. You're welcome. We're welcome. It's all great for everyone. All right. So without further ado, let's get into a demonstration of the program. Uh, let's see. What will we call our guy or gal today? Let's go with TestWiki. How about that? TestWiki, the innovative. Probably spelled that right. You know what? He's going to be, we'll do Gnome. And today we'll actually use the dice rolls. So again, this is something you don't have to use. Your DM may have a way cooler way he wants you to calculate stats, or a way lamer way. This just uses the book's standard dice rolling method to provide you with 6 scores you can put wherever you want. So he's a gnome. He gets a +2 to intelligence already, so we're going to bank on that, put the highest score there, so he can get a higher ability score modifier for using around the world that his dungeon master has created for him. Let's put his lowest stat. That's a really low stat. That's unfortunate. You know what? We'll put that in strength because as a gnome, he may or may not. I mean, he's a fighter, so he's going to be hitting stuff. But I feel like he could probably capitalize as a bow wielder or something that doesn't necessarily need to get up close and personal and use strength. So let's roll with this idea of bow wielder, and we'll give him his next highest stat in dexterity because that's where it needs to go for that. Constitution, wisdom, do 13, and charisma. Well, we'll put the 11 there, the 13 in con, give him an extra few hit points, hopefully, per level. Alright, so we'll go to archery. Sounds like a cool idea. Roll with that. Give him some more dexterity for archery. And this is something, again, I want to touch on this because we've gone through a couple screens pretty fast. You can go back at any time and change these. So if he wants to be an elf, he can be an elf. He can pick a different subrace. It works just fine. It'll change on his character sheet. It'll make all the necessary adjustments behind the scenes. Yeah, let's go with Gnome. Give him that +1 to Constitution there. So this has some minor changes that you will see, and a lot of changes that we actually perform behind the scenes. I'll touch on that later, kind of in the critical component section of this presentation, because it's very important. So let's pick Acolyte. It's important to note that Acolyte grants insight and religion for skill proficiencies. We actually added this granted skill proficiency line to the text that the user can see because it was causing some confusion because you have to cycle through all of these and check the next page to see what they got as far as granted skill proficiency goes. And it wasn't until the next page that you knew that there was overlap with the fighter skill proficiencies that you get to pick from just by being a fighter, not by even having a background. So now we list them. Insight is actually a fighter selectable proficiency. Excuse me. So we didn't want the character to lose that proficiency. And again, I touched on this iteration too, kind of re-relating that information though in maybe a more understandable way. But insight's gone now, so they won't double pick that. Be able to double pick that. So we'll pick animal handling and acrobatics. And this is new. Well, it's changed, I should say. So we're going to save this to this folder here, and oops, and we'll just call this presentation test guy. So now you can rename your save file. as long as it's conventionally formatted for whatever file system you have, it works just fine. All of the stats are here as we put them in. It's got the racial modifier to intelligence. We've got the new speed. Unfortunately, gnomes aren't that fast. They have a 25 speed. It's got all the skills selected. The black dot means that it's the one you're proficient in. Otherwise, it just derives its value from the base modifier, which is listed. So if you have a medicine is derived from wisdom modifier, there's your wisdom modifier. It's right there. We changed this. This looks a lot cleaner now. This kind of printed out and looked really, honestly, like garbage in iteration 2, and we've since cleaned it up. It looks a lot nicer. It's a lot easier to read. I'm not going to gush too much about the way this PDF lets us really put all this in here because I did plenty of that for the last presentation, but it looks great. It prints out how we wanted it to. So let's move on to the next topic. We have some user stories that we had to adhere to in order to kind of meet our expectations and what we wanted out of the program. And how we did this, we had 5 this time, so that's more than we had in the previous iterations. We did them all individually and made sure that they could all happen individually, be realized, and then we kind of cross applied them up to the point where within reason we did all 5. Some of them can't be overlapped because they require actually saving and exiting out of the program, but barring that, we were able to do all of this. One that I think was the most important and the most the biggest it took the most of our time was this here, user story 4. I want the option to leave an entire section of the character sheet blank if I'm undecided on something and still be able to generate the sheet. This was generating a lot of bugs, and that was because we didn't really have good model view separation for starters, so we had stuff that was very hard to fix, and we didn't have very good OOP in conjunction with that. I think those two a lot of times go hand in hand, and so we fixed that. It took a lot of time, but we fixed it, so now there's not bugs if you leave stuff blank. And then also, if you go back and change stuff, we had one bug when you change subraces, and we have eliminated that. But that was the focus of the first 2 weeks, was kind of cleaning that. And then, let's see, there was one other one that was important. Okay, so choose my fighting style from presented list of styles from the player's handbook. We actually created a new class called Handbook, and this is going to kind of segue us into our critical components here. The rest of these user stories, I don't want to devalue them, but most of them existed in some form in a previous iteration. They've only been minorly updated to be a little bit more specific. So like this, select a subrace from a list if a previously selected race has subraces. Before, it just kind of did that for you, and you didn't know it was a list of subraces, but now it has a combo box. And that's how the rest of them are. Really, 4 and 2 were the big ones that needed to be changed. And I mean, Story 5 is just the addition of a feature, so adding the save file. Story 3 is mostly just having the character speed, and then all of these kind of already existed. We just wanted to re-put them because we were doctoring the code behind the scenes. Let's see, Story 1. Oh, yeah, that was just a subrace thing. So yeah, moving on to critical components. So of course we added the 2 features, the speed and the save file name. But most importantly this time, we just really wanted to make our code forward compatible and very OOP oriented. Or sorry, that's a really bad way of saying it. We wanted it to be OOP and exemplify that. So the way we've got it now, we actually made this handbook class, and the handbook class is anything you could open the player's handbook and find. It's in here now. It's like a database of that information. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find a good online API that really gave us all the data we wanted for our program. So alongside this, we also made a JSON. And this is really cool because at any time, if you wanted to, you could go through and add a new background from one of the expansion books, and all you'd have to do is make a new JSON entry for it. And the way that view and character work, which character is our main model level code section, they just iterate through those. So they can get through, or view calls character to iterate through it. But they can iterate through those values now. and you can add whatever you want. So it's very forward compatible. And one of our acceptance test cases actually kind of touch on that. So one of them says, I would like there to be more background and race options. Well, we can do that. That's really easy for us to do now because race is also just an enum, and in race we can add more races, and in subrace we can add more subraces. And it's just a simple addition for each new item. So I guess that the critical component is just making sure it's forward compatible and OOP, and also with that, model view separate, I think really just helps essentially with the OOP. And that was what the majority of this project focus was. After we got the features implemented and working right, it was just cleaning, separating, splitting, deleting, adding. Mostly deleting though, because once we got it cleaner, we didn't need as much code for the most part. But yeah, to just kind of cover these acceptance test cases. So, can you create a character named Trashpote that is a hill dwarf with 16 dex, has the archery fighting? Basically, this is an acceptance test case from iteration 1, pretty much. Well, actually, the archery fighting style, that'd be iteration 2. And then this is an update. So this is kind of like saying, can you do what you could do before? Yes, awesome. And this is saying, okay, here's a new feature. Can you do this name it what you like. None of our users had any problems with the first two or the third one, and this is just highlighting on those background changes with the skill selections, and they were able to complete test 3 a lot faster. That's mostly what we were checking to make sure it was easier for them to complete test 3 because of the changes with the granted skill proficiency listing in the text area in the view code. But our acceptance testers, for the most part, or actually not for the most part, really they had no problem completing our tests at all. They were 100% capable of doing it. We mostly just got praise and a little bit of constructive criticism. So this background and race options, we hear you. That's something we can definitely do. For now, we just focused on the player's handbook, but it's definitely something we can add. But this is the stuff we like to hear. At no point was I confused or stuck with this program, because man, we were at times. When we were coding it, we had some problems. We had bugs. We're like, how are we gonna, we can't, let our users do this. And I'm glad to hear that you were able to do that. And I'm glad to hear this. The praise for implementing a change. That's always good. So I mean, I guess that pretty much wraps up everything that we've done. Again, the emphasis this iteration wasn't necessarily on adding features, but on fixing stuff, making it forward compatible with any changes that we might want to add from a development standpoint, or if a new class, or excuse me, a new race or a new background gets released in the future that we want to add to this, we can. It's really easy to do that now. Everyone, I want you to have a great and safe day. Good luck during finals. Have a good one.